It is ironic that we're having this conversation the day after Mother's Day and reflecting on the current state of American families in the midst of a pandemic. But equally important, the state of American families and the state of the mothers of those families in the economic realities that they face. 2.5 million American women have dropped out or were pushed out of the workforce since the start of this pandemic. In a recent ABC News poll, 25% of women said they are worse off economically now than they were a year ago, compared to 18% of men. A survey last fall found that almost 40% of working mothers in my state of Illinois, 40%, lost their jobs or were working reduced hours. Nearly half of all working mothers of color reported the same. There are many reasons that this recession has been so economically devastating for so many women. But the two biggest reasons are these. Women are overrepresented in the industries that have been hit the hardest by the pandemic: restaurants, retail, leisure, and hospitality. And women are the primary caregivers, in some cases the only caregivers, in the vast majority of American families. With schools and child care programs closed, what choice does a working mother have besides stepping back from work? For millions of American mothers and their families, the stimulus payments, the enhanced unemployment checks, the increased child tax credits, and other economic benefits in the American Rescue Plan have literally been a lifeline. It has enabled these mothers and families to feed their kids and to keep their homes during the worst recession since the Great Depression. So it came as a bit of a surprise that our Republican colleagues would choose to start Mother's Day weekend by vowing to end enhanced unemployment benefits for more than 8 million American workers. They cite the April jobs report as their justification. After we added 770,000 jobs in March, a strong showing, we learned last week the U.S. economy added only 266,000 jobs in April. Immediately, our Republican colleagues cited the disappointing job numbers as proof that the recovery is clearly stalled and we have to do more to get people back to work, as if it justifies ending enhanced jobless benefits. They seem to think that additional unemployment benefits make American workers lazy. They imply that the Americans would rather sit at home, watch nonstop Netflix, and eat chocolate-covered cherries rather than go back to work. They must not know many American workers. Americans want to work. Americans work longer and harder than their counterparts in almost every nation in the world. We should be proud of that work ethic and what it has meant to America. The reason many workers haven't returned to the workplace isn't because they're lazy. People remain afraid of this coronavirus. They lack adequate, affordable child care, and maybe caring for older family members or dealing with a personal health condition. That's the reality of life in families, and particularly struggling working families. Taking away the enhanced unemployment benefits they need to feed their kids and pay their rent or mortgage does nothing to change that reality except make it worse. Our Republican colleagues will say that the April jobs report is the reason for their renewed determination to stop sending these enhanced checks to the jobless families. The real truth is, these Republicans think the federal government ought to do the bare minimum to help working families weather this pandemic. That's their credo. Government isn't the solution. Government is the problem, even during a once-in-a-century health pandemic. Whether the economy is adding jobs quickly or slowly, whether COVID infection and death rates are rising or falling, Republicans have fought to scale back federal unemployment benefits for workers. Not one of our Republican colleagues, let me repeat that, not one of our Republican Senate colleagues voted for the American Rescue Plan. Remember that one? That was the plan by President Biden that put more money into the purchase of vaccines, finally set up a nationwide effort to administer those vaccines, sent the $1,400 cash check to working families, a check that had been promised by the previous administration, gave additional helping hands to small businesses to get through the pandemic, and did, in fact, increase, or I should say lengthen the period of time that people would be eligible for unemployment benefits. That's a pretty important package, don't you think? And when you look at what it did for America, it came just in the nick of time for many.